Welcome to the podcast. We're so glad you joined us today. And today's topic actually is
perennial.
It is perennial and is foundational to both who we are as persons, as individuals, but also for you as a mom and dad. And we're talking about your marriage. And
we had talked about prioritizing things at our last member date night and using your time well. And I think that is just a huge topic for couples. Is like, we can talk about how important your marriage is and how important your family is, but at the end of the day, if you're not making time for it, then what does that mean? How do I make that happen? Because we only have so much time.
We only have so much time, and for all of us, it's still a struggle. No matter where you are in your relationship, you've been married for a couple years.
You always have to discipline your time.
We have to do that. We have to wrestle it to the ground, and I think that in this work, I'll just say for us personally, it has challenged our marriage more working together, and it has challenged us to make time for each other. So it's never easy. Don't ever think that it's. It does get easier, I would say, as we have grown and matured.
Well, because if you have habits, then that's what makes it easier.
But sometimes you fall off the wagon and you need to be reminded. Right. So no matter if you've heard us talk about this before, if you're looking for an intervention, this is that moment. If you're looking for a sign.
You know what I was just thinking of is that that line from some poem that says, like, the world will end not with a bang, but with a whimper. I feel like that's how most marriages don't end with a bang. They don't end because they, like something horrible happens, like, infidelity or blah, blah, blah. They end because they're just neglected.
Yeah.
And taking time for your marriage is how you prevent neglect.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And your marriage is like a garden that needs regular care and feeding and nourishment and cultivation and some pruning here and there in your own lives, right?
We're going to talk about all this in the podcast. Starting
so
the podcast
this is a great topic. And but before we get to today's topic, we are two things. One, we're in the midst of our annual survey, right? We're kind of getting towards not the end of it, but we really are looking to kind of wrap that up in the near future.
We have about over 300 people. So keep going, keep taking the survey.
And it really matters
to 500 at least. Yeah.
Whether you've listened for a long time or this is the first time listening, we would really value it. This is this is our full-time work. We have staff that are dedicated, team that is dedicated to serving marriage and family life. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what works, what doesn't work, what you need, what you don't need, opinions, insights. All of that is really, really important to us. And you are giving us insight for you as well as for other families on how we use our resources most effectively. So for many, many reasons, but we'd be honored to give you a special discount on a course that you would take with us if you give us some of your time in taking the survey. So go to messyfamilyproject.org to see the link for the survey.
Right. It's at the bottom of the page on the homepage. And the other thing is that we have a very special date night coming up with Dr. Greg Bottaro. You can register for that on our website, also at the bottom of the homepage, just RSVP. It's free date night. You can come. We're going to do our podcast with Dr. Greg, but we're also going to be able to take questions from you. Yeah. And so you can be able to chat questions. And we have, for everybody who registers too, you're going to get an email with a special drink recipe, a cocktail,
and a mocktail.
And a mocktail and some appetizer ideas. So we have we want to make it really special for you and really fun. And also Dr. Greg is going to be talking to us about mindful parenting and kind of controlling those emotions. How do we really be present to our kids? Why is that important? How do we do that? And he is just such a great friend. We're really excited to have him on.
It's going to be a great date night for you and your spouse, but it also could be a great opportunity for you to invite others into your home.
Yeah,
we're gonna have it live. You can chat in, if you can cast it, if you will, to your TV. Have a couple of other parents over your house. Great way to invite them in. Have some fun. Have some drinks. Enjoy each other's company. We need more of each other, and we're just kind of doing our best to create excuses for you both, primarily with your spouse, but also with other parents out there, to connect and invite them in. This is an important topic. It's an important time. So I really highly encourage you. Again, the date is...
And we're also giving you something fun to serve them with our cocktail recipe.
Helping you be hospitable.
Date again? I'm sorry, November 21st. November 21st. So you got lots and lots of time.
Well...
3 weeks.
Act now. Put it on your calendar right now. Invite your spouse. Get some friends going.
Okay.
All right. So this is a re-release, a perennial topic that we want to invest in again. Making time for your marriage, how to do it, and why it's so important. So take a listen. So we want to talk today about something that we know is very, very important. And I guess just to set this up, we've been doing this effort. We've been married for 28 years, right? 28?
Yes. Yes.
Question mark?
Yes.
So we actually love each other, but we have done off and on different marriage prep. We've been in part of different efforts, and we have ourselves kind of just gone through ups and downs in our marriage. But we have seen in our ministry specifically in the last 7 years, really, so many challenges that couples face today, the demands that are put on marriages, the challenges that we're coming from. In the past, I've talked about my coming from a divorced family. That's
right.
pretty common today. And there's that challenge. There's so many demands that are put on parents. But we hear this over and over again. And almost every time when there's a discipline problem or when there's other struggles or other challenges or other issues that are in the forefront, oftentimes it comes first and foremost back to their marriage.
Right.
And so we want to spend some time
because
talking.
marriage is the foundation of the family.
That's right.
And if the marriage is off, then everything else is not going to work right.
Right.
Your relationship with your kids' relationships with each other, their relationships with the outside world, their psychological health, emotional health is really all dependent upon, in some way, your married relationship.
That's right.
And so you have got to get that right.
Right.
And so that's why how to build a relationship and some of the things that we're going to talk about, I think apply to any relationship, to be honest with you. I think these principles apply to your relationship with God, your relationship with friends. But really what we all have to recognize is the most important relationship in your life. If you're a married person, the most important relationship in your life is that with your spouse.
That's right.
Human relationship is that between you and your spouse. So if you are working on other relationships, even relationships with your kids, and you don't have your marriage down, time out. Get back to the marriage, fix that relationship, or start working on that, and then you can look at the other relationships.
Yeah, and we've said this before, but the times when you stop and say, "Hey, when does your marriage become an urgent issue that you need to deal with?" It's when your marriage is in crisis.
Yeah.
And I don't want to belabor that. I just think that we need to recognize that your marriage is so fundamental for you on so many levels. And
so when we're talking about like the matrix, the urgent and important matrix, right? There's things in our life. So Stephen Covey developed this. There are things in our life that are urgent, right? Like the messy kitchen, a child crying, deadlines at work. All of those things are urgent, right? But then there's the things in our life that are important. That's relationship with God, working on your marriage, building a vision for your family, ongoing financial health. And the problem is that the things that are urgent always get our attention first.
That's right.
Because they are urgent.
Yeah, that's right. They're screaming at you.
Exactly. But the things that are important, sometimes those are not
Sometimes
urgent.
they're urgent and important.
Sometimes they are urgent and important. You get into a car crash, there's a health crisis, medical emergency or whatever. You're having a baby, all of those things. But what we have come to realize is that if you think about it, working on your marriage is never urgent. It's not. You can always put your spouse to the back burner. You can always say, "Oh, we'll do that another day. Oh, we'll go on a date night another day. We'll do that later. We'll do that later." And the only time that marriage becomes urgent if when someone says, "I want a divorce.
Right.
I'm out." Then all of a sudden, oh no, if the fire alarm goes off. Oh, wait a second. What if you don't just pay attention when it's urgent? What if you pay attention all the time? Because the reality is that there's nothing, like we just said, there's nothing that's more important than your marriage as the foundation of your home. And we really want to challenge you here. And we want you to think about this. And we'll give you some ideas. Don't worry. We're not going to make this challenge and then just throw you in the deep end.
Right.
We want to give you some inspiration and some tips and tricks.
Yeah. And so just to kind of emphasize the importance of this. So I just did a little quick search, totally not very deep, but the importance of marriage and a healthy marriage on your health. And so, WebMD, right? You Google your symptoms on WebMD. So I was like, I wonder if these guys have. And it was awesome to see they had all these different studies that they listed talking about your physiological health. And
if you need more facts, here's some cold, hard facts.
Because I think it's important to remember, we're doing something. If we don't have a good habit in strengthening our marriage, then we might need some motivation. And so here are a couple of things. So the choice of spouse is one of the most significant choices you'll make in your life. It's more serious than choosing anything else, a house included, all the other things, right? There's nothing like a good and solid marriage, according to the psychiatrist here that WebMD starts with. But
I would agree with that. Correct.
That's right. So we start with that basis, right? But in many different studies, they followed both men and women with some borderline blood pressure issues, found that blood pressure is directly related to what is called marital cohesion, meaning how much couples do and share together. And they found
repeat that. That is really significant.
So
blood pressure is directly related to marital cohesion.
How much couples do and share together. What kind of life do you have together with your spouse?
Okay.
Actually correlates to your blood pressure. And they went on to
Very
say,
good.
We found that if you have a bad marriage, it might be better for you to avoid your spouse, which we're not recommending this. Okay. I'm just quoting.
No, well, it makes sense because it's kind of like it is very volatile,
Right.
like you're very affected by your spouse. So
That's
if you have a good spouse, it's very good. But if you have a bad spouse, it can be very bad.
Right. And because if
bad
you are
marriage, I shouldn't say bad spouse.
Yeah, because it's not.
Sorry.
Because if you are with your spouse, your bad spouse, if you will, the bad relationship, your blood pressure went up. But if you weren't with your spouse, the blood pressure went down. But in a good marriage, the exact opposite, and even larger impact, more positive impact on your blood pressure. And then other studies showed that in good marriages, they actually physiologically had thinner heart wall, thinner heart walls. That
which means what? What does that mean, Dr. Mike?
So that the thicker heart wall means that you have higher blood pressure. So a thinner heart wall is actually
It's a healthier heart,
right? And so physiologically, good marriages actually helped your heart physically. I'm like, what? That's crazy. And then it went into the whole idea of handling stress. Basically it says your immune system, depression, even like rashes, gastrointestinal issues, all of those things, they're pointing to, simple marital cohesion. I say simple, but marital cohesion, right? And
simple but difficult.
Yeah. And then again, it goes on to just all these different benefits that have less stress, less disorders, less phobias, less injuries due to accidents. So, and then there are things that went on and talked about how, it's interesting too. You looked at some of these studies where it's like, so for some men, and I often think about this, I might be completely lost if I wasn't married. I don't know if I'd be eating. I don't know if I'd be taking care of myself. I don't know. And maybe you're a guy who really is ahead of the game. You're breaking from the pack. But for many men, just the physical health is ginormously more significant.
You single men have a very hard time taking care of themselves.
They do. They just really
and
do.
Married men have a hard time taking care of themselves. That's why they needed a wife to take care of them.
and then it also found some of that with women as well. Yes. Their health that improves. So it's like both men and women have their health dramatically improve in a cohesive, unified marriage. When you're in a good marriage,
the best, safest place for a woman to thrive is within a marriage. Married women who are married and have intact marriages, more of those women have bachelor's degrees than women in any other state of life. Women are more able to develop themselves. They have a higher income. They have less feelings of loneliness and depression.
Yes.
They are the smallest number of victims of violent crime are married women. This is a beautiful thing. And it's kind of like, studies either confirm what common sense suggests or they're wrong, And so all of these studies confirm what instinctively. You know this instinctively. Right. But sometimes it's nice to be like, see, look, it's proven.
So there's all these medical reasons, there's psychological reasons, there's health reasons, but there's also this idea that in marriage, one of the deepest longings of the human heart is to be loved and to love. And in marriage, you have that, right? I mean, that's clear, but it's like, actually, it's a core human need.
That's right.
Right. And because
to be known,
right?
Yes.
And to be known and to be loved, even in the midst of your craziness.
Right.
We call ourselves the Messy Family Project. Every single one of you, sorry to admit this, you're a little messy. Okay. When you really
know that.
pull back all the veneer, pull back the curtain,
right.
Who really knows you? Now, there's still probably those of you who are listening who are married who are like, I don't know if my spouse really knows everything about me, or there are parts that I still haven't shared.
That's true.
And some of it takes time. And I'm not,
it does take time. We're still getting to know each other.
That's right. I mean, 28 years.
And we're going to talk about that actually.
and I think that's important that we recognize that there is no safer place than in a good, cohesive marriage. And again, that doesn't mean that you don't have somebody that you're struggling with in your marriage. That doesn't mean you have it all perfect. Because again, as the Messy Family Project, it's not about the ideal marriage that's somewhere out there in some stratosphere. It's about you investing and saying, how can we improve our marriage?
Yeah.
Because everybody can. Everybody can. Even regardless of, and I remember reading this one time, and it was really actually fascinating, psychological kind of study showing that even one member of that marriage, one spouse, can actually dramatically improve their marriage by them being involved. Yes, of course, ideally, it's both of you working together, but that even one person making a deeper commitment, becoming more vulnerable, becoming more loving, being it actually
work on
helps
yourself.
The whole, but it also helps you because we were not meant, our eternal destiny, if you will, our eternal mission is that we are supposed to give ourselves away. And it's in that we find our fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And so, all of this is
process. One of the things, one quote I thought of when you were talking was St. John Paul the Great said that kind of like that whole idea of like, you've never arrived. You're always in this process of learning about your spouse, of knowing your spouse, and John Paul said, love is never something ready-made, something given to man and woman. It is always a task at which they are set. Love should be seen as something which in a sense never is, but is always only becoming. I love that because it's reminding us that when you look at yourself and you're like, oh, I should be better. Our marriage, we're of course.
That's right.
That's because you're on this journey. You're becoming. It's the struggle is part of the journey. That's right. The journey, and so don't feel bad if you're not where you want to be. It's keep working at it because love is a task.
Right.
Right.
It's set before you, right? Yes. It's set before you as a task. And it's something that we can control on some level, right?
Yes.
There are a lot.
And that's why I think it's really good that what you just said about that. Even if you have one person changing themselves can make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's such a great point because, sometimes you have marriages or people who are, one person is really working on the marriage and one person's not, but that still makes a difference.
That's right. It really does. And so be of good cheer, take heart, regardless of where you are. One, don't worry about what the past was in some ways, right?
Acknowledge it,
recognize it. Don't shove it under the carpet, but also say, what can I do for the future? What can I really control? Because the whole, the anxiety or the worry of the past can sometimes cripple us. And then the fear of the future can, disable us from taking action. But that is against our religion. Our religion focuses on, our faith focuses on what can we do today? What can we do right now? What is within my control, as opposed to worrying about all the things that I can't control.
The next podcast after this, we're going to release. It's a interview I did with my mom. And
spoiler alert, it's awesome.
Yeah. But one of the things that she talks about in there is herself dealing with anxiety and depression as a young mother. And one of the things that she was taught by another Christian taught her this is that we worry or anxiety comes from us taking responsibility that doesn't belong to us. Responsibility over things that maybe belong to your husband, or maybe this responsibility belongs to your wife, or maybe this responsibility really belongs to God. And when we start taking responsibility for things that aren't ours, that's where anxiety comes from. And so just what you were saying about the past, the future, look at the future and you start to worry even about your marriage or even about your spouse. Maybe you're not responsible for that. You're responsible for yourself. Right. And God will give you the grace for that.
So one of the things that we want to talk about, again, as Alicia said in the beginning, you can extrapolate this out to other relationships, but the pivotal and key relationship in your life is with your spouse. Your marriage matters to us and the world in a way that no other friendship, no other relationship matters on the same level as your marriage.
That's right.
And when we've spent many years, and I've talked to married couples for the last, 30, 40 years almost, talking about, what makes a marriage work. And we've seen very different, we're like, you guys are really quirky and weird, but it's working for you, or you are like super like disciplined, engaged and type A, and I'm like, that's not me either. Where do I fit? Where do I find my place? And, but one thing that is consistently said over and over and over again, what's the secret to a strong marriage?
Right.
Date nights.
Or you would say time.
Yeah. Which ultimately that's how they usually say it. I'm still dating my spouse. I'm still going, and it's more than just going out dancing, but it's about that time. And so there are three big ways, three broad areas, I guess, if you will, that we want to talk about, or just to make it very specific and to kind of define what we're talking about. Talking about kind of daily check-ins, daily connections. We're talking about date nights, and then we're talking about kind of weekend getaways. Those
extended time
away, right? And it could be weekends, it could be a week, depending on.
And so in the title of the podcast, is how to build relationships. Well, it's really reflecting on something that
strong relationships,
right? Bishop, something that Bishop Olmsted of Phoenix said, which is relationships are built with the material of time. And I really love that so much, because it's this whole idea of quantity, quality, thing. Or what's really important? Well, they're both important. And you can't build a relationship without giving someone your time. And that is true, like we said, in any relationship, but especially the spousal relationship. And because the spousal relationship is never urgent, but it is always important, we want to focus on that today and really challenge you to make those daily connections, date nights, and plan weekends away, or weekends / extended time away, depending on your state in life, if you will. And because this connections are made, that you're revealing yourself to your spouse, these are these small investments that you make over time. You can't just say, oh, I'm not going to talk to my spouse for a whole month, but then we're going to go away for this, week-long couples retreat, and that's going to fix everything.
Right.
That may kind of reorient you or kind of put you on the right path.
Right.
If you have gotten, if your marriage is falling apart,
resetting, things, right.
But really, really what you need, even after resetting, you need small investments over time.
Right.
And I have noticed that when we don't have time for our daily connection, that it's then I start making assumptions. Yeah. Then you do something that that I could take, that I start interpreting.
Not me.
Hypothetically.
Just kidding.
But I begin then interpreting actions.
I was just going to say that, interpreting it.
Wrong light.
It gives you a bias. It gives you a false assumption. Yeah.
One thing, one image that Gary Smalley uses in the book, Gary Chapman, sorry.
Yeah.
But Gary Smalley too. He also talks about relationships. But anyway, when they talk about your love tank,
right,
or love tank or bank account, right? I'm just going to say love tank, right?
Sure.
And so if you have, all of us have this like need for love in our closest relationships, whether marriage relationships or children's relationships as well. And so we have this like tank for love. And when that love tank is filled up, then when my hypothetical husband
I think she's talking about me.
Does something that's annoying or, whatever, it's more easy for me to say, oh, well, I'm just going to ignore that, when, or, he forgets to take out the trash or whatever, or, or something happens or there's
I'm going to bring up some stuff later too.
No gas in the car. Anyway, but those things, then they will irk me less if I have a full love tank because I feel really loved by you. But when that love tank is depleted, when we haven't had connection, when our physical relationship has dried up, when there's no feeling of being known, then even the smallest things I can take negatively.
That's right. Yeah, no. And I think that's the reality of any relationship, but so crucial in marriage because the stakes are higher and you also expect more. So the expectation.
That is very true. The expectation
sets you up actually, because it's kind of like going back to the first part that when you're in a good marriage, it actually increases your heart health and all these other things. But when you're in a marriage that's struggling, it actually can have a negative impact because you knew the goodness of what a marriage could have been because you've experienced it, or have the ideal of a marriage in your mind of what it could be because you see it in other people. Now we may have a false expectation because we see only rose-colored glasses, other people's relationships, and we don't know the struggles that everyone goes through. But I think that expectation creates actually even more of a pain. And then we can think about our spouse and say, aren't they the one who's supposed to be loving me?
Yeah.
And then we start the recordings in our mind. And then those moments, and again, I've said this before, but there are times when I have not felt the connection. And therefore, when I'm rebuffed in my desire for physical intimacy or for the umpteen time XYZ wasn't done or whatever it might have been.
Or I say something like about the gas in the car.
Yeah.
Or I make a comment and then it's more hurtful.
Or some
Mike's
comment.
love tank is really full right now. So
I can say this right now. But the idea that, but even those things where for me as a guy, that might hit that may smack of criticism or condescension or being treated like a child comes to, again, not that it's ever right, but it's usually be like, it's not that big of a deal. And when there isn't those connections, I can forgive
more quickly, almost. Right.
Yeah. And I think that we have to recognize that we each have our own buttons that get pushed more specifically. And then, there's a reality that there are issues maybe that never got fully resolved or might be lingering in the background.
Yes.
And again, this is not about glossing over any of those things. Those things do need to be dealt with, but they don't need to be dealt with every single day, and they don't need to be brought up in every situation. So how do you work through that is by having these kind of regular daily connections.
Yeah.
And
because if you don't, then what happens is that those wounds, if you don't, if you're not able to forgive your spouse, if they are there festering, guess what? They're going to come out sideways. I mean, they're going to come out at some point, and it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
You need to have specific time when you're alone and loving each other where you can say, here's my heart.
Right.
And here's where my heart has been wounded. And I'm telling you this because I want you to know me.
Right.
I'm not telling you this to shame you. I'm telling you this because I want to reveal myself to you, even with my woundedness.
Right. And it's showing even just the time, like even if you're not having this massive, deep conversation during that time, you're making present the words you speak. My time is laid at your feet. I'm making the sacrifice of time away from all the other things. Now, we'll get into how to make these work, more effectively. But the importance of all of these different levels, right? The first daily, the second kind of more. Some do it weekly or monthly date nights, and the weekend or extended getaways. But it's really important that you do this so that you communicate to your spouse as well as to your children that your marriage is important.
What I thought you were going to say is the one identifier that about these connections is that you are away from the children.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I thought you were going to say. Yeah. So I was kind of laughing here because it's like, okay, when we say daily connection, date nights, weekends away, what do all three of those things, what is the one element that defines what we're talking about is that you are away from the children. It doesn't matter what you talk about. It doesn't matter because there will be different things that we're going to talk about that you can do and how to spend that time and where you go and all of those things. But the one thing that must be present is not the children. Is that you have to. Why do we say that? Because of the urgent, important thing. Children are always urgent, or they are. They can be. They can be urgent, and they do need you. And they do need your love and they do need your attention. And it's so easy to say to your spouse, I'm going to interrupt this really important conversation we're having right now because I need to do X for the children. And you must, I say this, I love children. I love them so much, but you have to get away from them in order to take care of that relationship from which they come.
That's right.
And this is where you're going to get the grace to take care of that child,
right,
is from your marriage.
Right. And whether you have received those children through the marital embrace or whether through adoption or through, the world needs your marriage to be intact. And you're the only two who can really effectively do that. So let's jump into, if you don't mind.
Did you have any other thoughts about why it's so important to be away from the children? Pretty much it's just so we can have the time that we can get the grace to love them, that we can get the grace to...
Well, again, coming as a child of divorce, as somebody who's lived through that, we've talked about this before, but I missed out on the couple love, basking in the glow of the love of my parents. And my parents, it loved me individually, and I know that both now, and I particularly think I had an idea of that when I was a kid. But I missed out on so much, and the solidity, the fact that your home needs to have a fixed, sure point, and it can't be the kids. It needs to be your marriage.
There you go.
And as a benefit to your children, they need to see, again, not that we're always perfect, but that we're working as a team, that we're united, that we're madly in love. That we intentionally make them uncomfortable when we kiss in front of them. I think that's an important thing that our kids gotta get grossed out.
30-second kiss.
That's right. You don't have to do anything inappropriate in front of them. That would not be advisable. But I do think that your kids will benefit immensely from that. And then again, there's a ton of research that talks about the benefit of marriage to kids. And that's
absolutely
academically and intellectually, that's economically, that's mental health, that's their future spouses, their future life and earning and income and everything.
So you are not hurting your child by saying, I cannot speak to you right now because I need to spend time with mom.
That's right.
Or I need to spend time with dad. You are not hurting your child when you say, I know you don't want me to go out. I know you're crying because I'm leaving the house. We have left the house with crying children, who didn't want us to leave or whatever. You're not hurting them. You have to have your gaze fixed long-term. You have your gaze fixed on not just what is urgent, but what is important. And that is you and your spouse and your marriage and the need of your children to bask in that couple love that you have. So I think that is really important.
Yeah. Maybe before we go into all because we want to talk about some of the major obstacles to making this happen and how to do it practically.
We'll give you the practical tips.
Before we do that, I just wanted to share a little bit more. We here at the Messy Family Project are on a mission, and it's not just Alicia and I, although this is how it started. We're a small team now. We're on a mission to empower moms and dads to embrace their sacred calling. We believe that if you want to change the world, you need to begin with the family.
And the growth of our ministry is really due to parents like you who listened to our podcast, then reviewed it and shared it, which amazes us again and again.
It's true.
How many people share this podcast. So if we have been a blessing to you, help us out and continue to promote our ministry on social media. And please subscribe to the podcast.
Because with more ratings and reviews, we could become the top podcast in parenting out there. Help us become the place where all parents can find support and encouragement by giving us a 5-star review and simply telling your friends.
You may not realize this, but this is actually our full-time job. And our team is able to reach thousands of families because of the generosity of those who believe in our mission. So please consider supporting this ministry by visiting our website where you can donate, join our community of messy families, and also find free downloads, resources, and more info about upcoming events, all at messyfamilyproject.org.
All right, well, let's get back to the conversation now. All right, so we kind of set up this idea,
right?
Why it's important,
right?
But why don't people do it, right? Now you're listening to this podcast about deepening, having a stronger marriage. So maybe you have gone on a date night recently. But maybe you're like the vast majority of people that we talk to who say it's been a struggle to make that a commitment. And so what are some of the common objections? First one was kind of connected to the kids. The kids are very demanding. It's hard to get out of the house.
Right. And you know what? I was just thinking, this is one of the reasons I think it's really good to be around a community of families that share your values, because I think that when you have that, you look at other couples and you will be inspired by them.
Yes.
We had, like, for example, what are the objections or stumbling blocks? Somebody emailed us and said, well, how do I get out of the house for a date night when I have, 3 little kids under 5? And the tone of that question kind of said to me that this woman felt like it was impossible. It's impossible. No one ever does this. But the thing is that if she lived in a community of families who were also doing date nights, and she saw, oh my gosh, those people have 7 kids. Oh, those people have 6 kids. Oh, those people also have 3 kids under 5. Then she would see this is possible. This is more than possible. People do this on a regular basis, like their entire lives.
Right.
And so it's not like you have some special case that you have little kids under 5. It's like, this is what it means to be a Catholic family. Like,
that's right.
I mean, I don't want to say like, well, you're special because you are a human dignity, you're
unique and irreplaceable.
Right. But your family situation is not special. This is average. This is normal. So you have no excuse. She was kind of like, oh, this is my excuse. I have little kids. It was like, so what? Well, and also too, there's no excuse.
Are you going to not have little kids? Like, is that the reason you're not going out? Because somehow you're making these little kids. Right. So you're finding time for some of the activities of marriage. But where are we investing in making sure that our relationship is strong?
And I do have to admit, I now, that being said, I am certainly very sympathetic to the logistics of babysitting and money and the time that it takes to find somebody.
Right.
But I am also convinced that if you make something a priority, you will figure it out. So a couple ideas for just talk about babysitters. All right. So babysitters, just how do you find babysitters? Number one, you could go to your parish priest and say, do you know, if you're new in the area, you say, do you know any family that you would recommend babysitting? And chances are they do. They know the families who are active in their parish. They know who has teenagers. Say, oh, we call this person. When I was a kid, I got babysitting jobs from the recommendation of our parish priest. And I think that that's one good way to start. Another good way to start is that even if you're on a Facebook group or something like that with neighborhood people or whatever, you can ask if anybody has recommendations or teenagers, to babysit. If you may say, well, this person doesn't know my kids or whatever, have them. A first step to getting no babysitters, stay in the house, have them come over and play with your kids, kind of like a mother's helper situation. Say, look, I'm going to be working inside. Can you play with my kids while I'm over here working? So then you can observe them. You can see, how do they do with the kids? How do your kids do with them? Is this the kind of person that I want to leave my children with? Another idea is that you have them babysit after your kids are in bed. You put your kids to bed at 7:30. Then you have them come over. They just basically need to sit in the house, right. And watch TV or whatever. And so you can go out. So there's baby steps to this. I normally would not jump in the deep end and say, I'm going to have a babysitter and they are going to have to give the kids dinner, watch them for 2 hours, put them to bed, and then I'll be home. That's a lot if your kids don't know the person.
That's right.
But there's a lot of steps that you can make before that to make it easier and so you feel more comfortable leaving your child with somebody.
And, we've talked about the idea of friend stalking in the past, like looking for, if you're new or don't have community, to really find and make that happen. And whether there be a mom's group in your church, a men's group, whether there be, some other group. So looking at those, kind of building those relationships, and then finding couples who are maybe older than you, who have teenage kids, teenage daughters usually, and that you trust them, that you get to know them, that you can see them and you draw them into your orbit. And again, you can start with some baby steps. Now, on the other side of that too, you could start with, again, we talked about this daily connections. Maybe it's going out at night, but maybe it's an early morning. We used to get up and exercise before the kids even woke up.
Right.
Now that's not if you're up in the middle of the night with the kids, that might be really tough for you. But I think that one of the big things,
there's always seasons,
there's seasons of your life.
Yeah.
And again, if you just had a new baby, okay, get it. That's a very reasonable time for you to take, let's take a little pause on going out. That doesn't mean you take a pause on your daily connections.
Right.
And that means that you find the time, and maybe that is a kind of a date in situation where you're making sure the kids say, hey, mom and dad are going to have a special dinner up in the room, with the new baby or whatever, like that you're still finding and being creative in making that time because your connections, your time together is valuable. And there's just so many little things that you can do. And then kind of building off of that, the idea of just spending that regular time together, because all of this has got to be developed as a habit. And when you have those little small building blocks, that really matters, because let's overcome the obstacle of just simply saying, another big obstacle that people often talk about is that I just simply don't have the time. We're just so busy. Well,
that makes me crazy.
And
it really does.
We don't want to be heartless, but everybody's busy. And one of the things we would, on a side note, we'd encourage you to consider the family board meeting. If you feel like you're frantic and too busy for your marriage, then you are too frantic and too busy.
Period.
We're
Full
diagnosing
stop.
you. Okay.
Right.
And because if you
it's that urgent, important thing.
Yeah. And if you haven't been able to make time for your marriage, or you're not sure. And again, I get it. If it hasn't happened, say why. Take some time, pause, and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to say no to a couple things. So you and I, husband and wife, we can sit down and actually say, how do we carve out time?
Right.
How do we make this happen?
Because we make time for things that are important to us. So if you say to me, we don't have time, translation in my mind is my marriage isn't really that important.
And we know that's not true because you listen to this podcast.
Right.
So therefore,
exactly.
we want to get your intentions aligned, your actions aligned with your intentions.
Exactly. And I understand. So we kind of get caught in this current of life, with kids' activities, and maybe, you have sickness in the house, or this person's sick, and then this person, and this person, and we get carried along.
Right. Sometimes we can find ourselves in a rut.
Right. And so like that whole time issue is really the cure for that is being intentional. So in your heart, you may say, oh, I recognize we haven't done this, together with my spouse. And that's good that you recognize that. But then you have to put that intention behind it and stop and somehow get out of the rat race, if you will, and say, okay, what is a new habit that I can make to make this happen within my home? And so like Mike was saying, as far as the daily connection, my brother Paul talks about, he on the podcast he did with Mike, talked about coffee and wine, having coffee together in the beginning of the day and having wine together at the end of the day. And I, for us, Michael doesn't drink coffee or wine.
Oh, well, so we don't talk.
So we really never used that analogy, but I liked the fact that he did it. I think it was cute. But we would, when the kids were when our oldest was 12, we would get up early and take a walk and just walk around the neighborhood for an hour. And that was our time to talk about the day. What are we doing? And when we came home, the kids were up and moving and stuff, and so we would leave the house at 6 o'clock, or sometimes 5:45, and take that walk for an hour or half an hour, whatever. And so it was our exercise, but it was also that time to connect. Obviously if you have little babies, all of that. Hey, you could put them in the backpack, take them with you, or you just do that in the house somewhere. And if your kids come down, we have a couple we are mentoring who would put a baby gate in front of their kids' doors, and they would go downstairs in the morning. And so their kids could not come down, could not get out of their rooms. They could hear their kids could hear them, which I think is really beautiful.
Right. It communicates something powerful to the kids.
Like, no, this is mommy and daddy's time. This is mommy and daddy's time. And you can come down, when we come up, and they, it took a while. It actually took a couple of weeks, depending on how strong-willed your child is, but it works, and you just have to be stronger than they are.
And we had another older couple who would have couch time, right? I think that's what they called it. Where when he came home from work, right? When the dad came home from work, mom and dad would sit down. I think it was 20 minutes. It wasn't terribly long, but that takes some logistics and planning to make that time possible, so that whether dinner or other things that were going on, and that the kids got habitualized to that.
That's right. That was their time together. Who used to do that is the Martins.
Yeah.
Regis Martin, and Mary Ann, or Roseanne. Sorry. Anyway. Okay. So that's the daily connection, right? And then you have date nights. And then you have your weekend away. Right. And I know that is difficult. The logistics of getting away for a weekend can be very involved. So a couple ideas here. Number one, family members.
Yeah.
And if your family members can't travel to you, you can travel to them.
Right. We've actually taken our kids and dropped them off at our in-laws.
Right.
Or my in-laws.
or aunts or uncles. My sister actually in October is going to she wanted to do something special with her husband. So they are all coming here.
What?
We'll talk about this later. They are all coming here and they are going just an hour or two away, and so you can do that. You can say, hey, brother or sister, can I leave the kids with you for a little bit? And so we can go even in the area, but we can have that time away. Maybe there's other families. Maybe you can split up your kids and have, hey, so our kids do sleepovers, with other families who share our values. And so maybe you say, hey, can you sleep over here, for these few nights, for one night even. And so my husband and I can have a time away. Also, even if the overnight thing is very difficult, even if you have a babysitter come, so you leave, so you put your kids to bed, you leave, right? And babysitter comes and sleeps over and wakes up with the kids in the morning and watches them for the day. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this to really make it happen.
And one of the things that really struck a chord with me is, I think when it was kind of a family board meeting, if I remember correctly, but when we really sat down and we looked at who do we trust as babysitters, what do we need, and how do we budget for it? Because when I looked at, it actually made me happy to start budgeting for our date nights. And that included, going out to a restaurant or something, but also babysitting in there. And then when we were going to go away for something larger, we had to put up and save up for a little bit longer to really do that. But when you can make it part of your monthly budget,
right?
And really say, no, you can look at my schedule and see that my relationship, my marriage is important. And you can actually look at my budget and you can say that we're spending our money on things that are going to enrich our marriage.
Right.
Because, do you invest in your home? Do you invest in your retirement? Do you invest in your health? I hope all of those things, right? Financially, right? But what is going to help all of that work even better is a strong and vital marriage. Right?
Yeah.
And so how are we both in our time and our money investing wisely? Because it's worth it.
Yeah.
It really has a long-term payoff that those small, we kind of talked about it in the beginning, right? And this is both financially, but also in our time. Those small investments really, really pay off. And I think to recognize that we have these kind of three layers of connections of the daily, the week, weekly, monthly, date nights, and then the kind of special occasions where we are able to get away for an extended
Maybe it's
period
once
of time.
a year, once every other year,
right?
At least once every 5 years,
right.
I would say. All right. So let's, as we end up kind of like start wrapping things up in the next few minutes, let's just talk about real quick is that what do you do when you have the time? What are the things that you talk about? And I think it's really important that we go through this because, you could take that time. So, I mean, not that any of you would do this, but I'm just saying hypothetically, what if you went out together and you had a regular date night and you both spent that whole time looking on your phones? All right, that doesn't, just the fact that you're together is not magic. You know, you have to actually connect.
Engage
you
with
have
each
to
other.
actually engage. Not that anyone would do that, but you could also waste that time together by only talking about logistical things, or only
the things
talking
that
about
are urgent and unimportant.
Yes, exactly. You could take your time even and talk about things that are urgent but not important.
Right.
And so you just want to make sure, like we've actually made like quote rules for each other, especially in doing this ministry. We'll have to be like, okay, we are not going to talk about the Messy Family Project, or we have had times when we're like, we're not going to talk about the children.
Right. And I think it's important that you have those parameters so that you spend time rightly. Like, I mean, there is a very appropriate time to talk about the kids.
Yes,
there's a very
absolutely.
important time for us to talk about our ministry, right?
Right.
But it's a matter of saying, we don't need to talk, and you also don't need to talk about deep, heavy subjects every time.
Right.
So I think that we need to kind of free ourselves up to recognize that our relationships need this kind of ebb and flow. If you don't have enough depth in your conversation, then you're going to be very shallow in your relationship, right? But if it's always these deep and, very interpersonal, emotional conversations, it could become very exhausting.
Yeah. And then you won't want to do it.
That's right. And so you need to have this right mix in those relationships. So some of the things. So I think
it's good to talk about things like memories.
Yeah.
Hey, remember when we did this? Remember when this happened? Oh, that was so much fun, or that was so funny. I think it's good to bring up memories, even if memories of things you've done together, but even memories of that you have individually.
Right.
Maybe it's about your childhood.
Right.
Maybe you're talking about how you grew up. Maybe you're talking about fun things that you did with your family. Yeah. Maybe you're talking about like the greatest trip you ever took, and maybe when you were in college or when you were single, like before you were married. So I think those memories and kind of like revealing your past to your spouse. And we have found that those conversations are endless.
Yeah.
Because just recently there was something that happened that you were like, I never knew that. I never knew that you did that. I never knew that you had that experience. And it was like, I don't know. I just never brought it up.
Because we have a whole life before me.
Exactly.
And then there are, even in our day-to-day life, there are things that happen that we didn't realize. Oh, I didn't know you went out with so-and-so and got coffee and, had this conversation. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
But then there's also stuff that like, again, Alicia and I actually enjoy politics. And that's not a stressor. I know for some people that would be like a stress.
Don't talk about that.
Totally get that. That's fine. But we enjoy those conversations.
Big ideas.
Or maybe you're like, whether it be art or literature or history or there's big philosophical conversations. Have some deep thoughts, have some deep conversations, get to the core of some things.
Kind of like hey, I read this article the other day that said this. Even like when we used to go, when Mike was in fundraising and we would go to events, do you remember doing this? He would say, what are the headlines? Because I want to have good things to talk about when I'm at this event, like that I'm fundraising and I want to know, kind of be on up and up. You know what? It is not a bad thing for you to do that before your date night.
Yeah, just to have some thoughts.
Exactly. Go through some of the headlines or find whatever you're interested in, whatever really excites you, whether it's literature or art, like Mike was saying. Read some good articles and then you have something to talk about. Yeah. Like big things. Think about like when you were dating. You didn't just come and just talk about, how was your day? Oh, good. Oh, well, how was work? Don't do that.
Yeah.
Talk about some big ideas, and then those intellectually stimulating ideas, it's really good, especially for moms. Yeah. Moms are at home all day.
And I think that it's important for us to recognize there are the daily connections, which should be asking, how you doing? What's going on immediately right now.
Absolutely.
Where you're on a date, you want to talk about something more bigger, right?
Very good clarification.
And I think, and then, again, each level goes up and, again, when you go away, you might just be, well, we'll get to that in a second, I guess. But I mean, the level of conversation should be appropriate to what you're doing.
Yes.
Right? We just went out, Alicia and I just went out on a date to a jazz club, right? The music was phenomenal. So I'm sliding in, if that's all right.
Yeah, we have to keep going here. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but slide, looking at activities that really fill you up. For us,
right,
we both love live music.
Right.
We both enjoy this. And so, you know what? The conversation wasn't super deep
Because there's music and it was
there
loud.
was, it was hard to have any much of a conversation, but there was a conversation. So when we had those conversations, they weren't about just logistical things. They were a little bit more about dreams and things like, hey, what about this? And, so it's both the conversation, but also then the activity you do that's going to fill you up.
Right.
That's going to make.
That refreshes you. That you're like, oh, that was so good. I just enjoyed that so much, And
I remember when we were dating, and one of the signs that I remember thinking as a hopeless romantic, that one of the things I loved about being in relationship with you is that I could be comfortable just being quiet with you, not having to fill up the void with stuff. And not that not everyone feels that way, but there was just something that was just great. Like, I didn't need to say anything. I could just be with you. I could just be in your presence. And there was something great about that. Have we rekindled that? Do we have that? And for us, being at a place like, the jazz club really fills both of us up. And we need to be thoughtful about that. How do we love our spouse? Because there are ways that we both love, and there's ways that your spouse might love.
Right.
To activities that they are going to enjoy.
And so just to really think about, like, are we always going out to eat? Are we always going out to eat the same place? Not that there's anything wrong with eating, especially if you're like a foodie kind of person, but that can also just be kind of like rote and routine. But just try to think outside the box. Maybe it's going to different restaurants. Maybe it's different ethnic restaurants. Maybe it's enjoying more hiking. Maybe it's reading together. My one sister, they love reading books aloud to each other. That's very relaxing to them. Gives them something to talk about. Like, she loves her husband's voice, all of that. Maybe it's like doing a paint and sip together. Maybe it's even working outside together.
That's right.
Who knows what is it that you do that fills you up, and just be really, really intentional about that. And so then, and the other thing is, when you go for a weekend away on those longer trips, again, be really intentional. Don't just say, oh, we're just going to sit on the beach this whole time, even though there's nothing wrong with that per se, as long as you are doing it intentionally. And that is something that would be good for the two of you, good for your relationship, and kind of help fills you up.
And again, just to kind of see the depth of that conversation grow. Now, when we go on a vacation, just as a family, there are times where it takes me a little while almost to unplug from work, right? Just to kind of chill out and go down. And it's just, it's enjoyable, but it's leisure. It's fun. Usually when you and I have gone away, again, everybody might do this a little bit differently. When you and I are going away, it's not for like a week-long thing. Hey, if you can do that and that works for you and your family, great. But for us, it's usually a weekend, sometimes a little bit more, but rarely we've gone for like a week away. But it does take me some time. It takes us a little time just to kind of get into the getaway experience. So it's okay just to sit on the beach for a little while. Not for a little while, for a day, 2, whatever. And some of you might look and say, that's all that would fill both of us up just by sitting on the beach for the next, 3-4 days. But in using that beautiful gift, if you were able to make time and invest the whatever money we needed to go away for a getaway weekend, you want to really elevate that conversation too. You want to be able to be a little thoughtful, like, hey, these are some big things. Not as work, and we're not saying necessarily doing a family board meeting every, whatever. Although we do that, that's what we try to do. But that time just for you to really both renew your relationship, renew why you were married in the first place, and talk about things that really matter, so that you can walk away from that time
feeling closer.
There's a deeper sense of unity. And then there's also kind of an angle that again, sometimes you may want to consider is when you're away on vacation, sometimes we just forget everything that we left behind, meaning maybe the physical exercise is not there. And I'm okay if you're not exercising, but maybe you would normally pray. And I struggle with this sometimes, going away on a vacation or a getaway. I forget to pray, or we get so busy with other things, or we're just relaxing so much we forgot to pray, or, think about all these little things that are like, okay, no, body, mind, and spirit. Like, I want to have something that feeds my body, not just the food I eat, which is, I think, really wonderful, but the physical activity that we might do, the swimming, the hiking, the whatever, when we're away, but then also our intellectual conversation. How do we, whether it be an article or a book or something that we're really stimulating, but it's also our spirit, And so if body, mind, and spirit, particularly as you do that getaway, I think that's important to really think about.
The way I always say it when the first time that we went away together for a weekend, I think that we had 3 children. So we had been married, 5 years. And afterwards, I remember thinking, like on the weekend, I was like, I remember you. Like I had forgotten why we fell in love. I had forgotten that we were like, lovers, really, and it's so good to just kind of like not, especially when you're parents, and you have young children, to step out of that role of being mommy and daddy, and being lover and beloved.
Yes.
And which kind of leads us to your physical intimacy.
That's right.
And I think that that's, again, why those date nights and the weekend away are so important, because this is the time that you have to take to really relax. And it's good to focus on your physical intimacy.
That's right.
Hey, get the Popchak's book, Holy Sex, the Guide to Intimacy. Or there's another book, a Protestant book, which isn't perfect, but good, called Intended for Pleasure. And obviously sex is not just intended for pleasure, but it's intended for unity, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, but there are some very good, even just like tips and tricks, of like things to open up your mind, to really be able to enjoy each other. And what I would say is like on you did on your honeymoon, but better.
Far better. Hopefully
so much better. so much better because you know each other. You've been practicing this for a longer amount of time. Yeah. And sometimes even our physical intimacy, we can get into a rut. And I would say vanilla ice cream sex. Like it's just like, oh, it was good, But it's like sometimes this is the time for you to be more make it more exciting and explore more and open up your hearts and your minds to each other, and really talk about that. Yeah. Really talk about it and
that's a great conversation topic, which usually ends up leading to an even more intimate and special occasion. Exactly.
And I think even your date nights, really should end with physical intimacy. Yeah. Ladies, if you're not already realizing that, and the guys all know this. All right.
That's
already
why we go on a date, right?
But ladies, like that is really, really important that you are thinking about that and recognizing that this is your time to have your emotional intimacy with your spouse. And so that can lead to physical intimacy. Why? Because both are important. Yeah. You can't say, oh, only the emotional aspect of our marriage is important. And the physical, oh, he just wants sex all the time. Well, wait a second. But and we've talked about this on the show before. So your desires are valid for emotional intimacy. So his desires aren't valid.
Right.
For physical intimacy. That's a lie.
Yeah.
That is a feminist lie. Yeah. It's that both of those are important you both have gifts to bring to the relationship. And yes, you do need that emotional connection, which is why we want you to be really intentional about that. And you know what? You have to be intentional about your physical intimacy as well.
Yeah. And I think that if we just get that idea that there's a package here, that we're building something beautiful together, meaning there are these activities and fun things that are kind of intertwining our hearts in just the physicality of doing fun stuff together.
Yeah.
Then there's and that's kind of a prequel to kind of a deeper emotional intimacy and the conversations and the shared values and the interests and the ideas and so forth that we're talking, which then also kind of culminates in this physical, right?
That's right.
But it's not physical as in it's only physical. Mm-hmm. It's a culmination of all of this.
That's right.
And then you are on the other side, and that's when you have a deeper spiritual intimacy with your spouse. Because again, the whole point of all of this is that you're a cohesive, comprehensive unit, that you as a couple have all these beautiful needs, ideas, struggles and needs and challenges and all of that you bring together in these regular small investments that end up with a huge payoff.
Yeah.
And we know we've seen this truth in our lives. We've seen this in the successful marriages that we know out there, is they have these 3 elements.
Yeah.
And this is the basics of having a strong, vibrant marriage.
Is emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, spiritual intimacy.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so we want to encourage you to think about that. How are you spending in your day-to-day, your weekly time schedule? How are you spending time to connect with your spouse? Even if you have a busy job, I've had many busy jobs. I've had many places where
Absolutely.
I've lived in other states even for a time, right? Whether your work demands that, whether you're in the military or otherwise.
What's your daily connection?
What's your daily connection? When are you regularly going on dates? And that's either, some people do it weekly, but at least monthly. When are you going out on a date? A date without the kids, that it's the two of you, and it's reuniting you. And then maybe once, twice a year. Again, you can go more if you're capable and able to figure that out. But at least, once a year.
I would say at least once every 5 years, because even once a year is sometimes can be really difficult. It can be,
but I think even, I don't know, you can play with this one, all right?
Make it your goal once a year, and then maybe it'll be once every other year.
We'll take it. But even if it's one night away, right?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be, but I think there's something powerful about just dedicating that level of time.
Okay, so after listening to that, I actually went through the transcript, listened to the whole podcast again, and pulled out some key points for you. Because you know what? When I was looking at the outline that we're using for that podcast, I'm like, okay, this outline is really not that helpful. We said a lot more than what is in this outline.
Yeah. Which happens a lot when we do podcasts, right? It just changes as we're having. It's a conversation.
That's right.
There isn't a full script. There is no safety net when we do this.
So give them the first three or four points.
All right. Here's some key takeaways for you. Marriage is never urgent, but it is always important, right? And that means that you need to be intentional, making time for your spouse, making time for your beloved. We need to remember marriage is good for people, right? It's both. It's good for us, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and even physically, right? Marriage is good for people. 3, we need to give our spouses our time. That's through daily connections, date nights, and extended time away. Because this is really what it comes down to. You can't say you love somebody, and you can't prove to that, but without how you're spending your time.
Okay, and remember the whole idea of a love tank, right? You need to have a full love tank. A full love tank helps smooth out those rough spots in marriage and makes it easier to ignore those little things. And that love tank is filled up by time together. Next, you have to be alone without the children.
Yes.
You just have to do it. You have to do it because your children need that strong couple love. And that is essential for them. And that is renewed when you are just being husband and wife, not mommy and daddy. And then you need to have a strong community around you, a community so you can see how other people relate, how do they make time for each other, and also to call on that community for support when you need babysitters and childcare and all that kind of thing. And last, make boundaries. Make boundaries and goals for your time together, right? You don't want to just use your time just watching TV together. Yeah, you're technically together, but let's use that time wisely. Okay, and so 2 questions, which are kind of like obvious, I think.
So when is your daily connection with your spouse? Are you doing the coffee and wine thing that we talked about, or when is that happening? And when is your regular date night? We go every week. What's on your calendar? Is it on your calendar? Get it on your calendar. That's really important. And what's the best way for you? Talk about this with yourself. What's the best way for you to spend time together? And maybe go out on a date and have that conversation. Have the conversation about when are we going to do this regularly, so that it's a habit ingrained in our lives as well as for our kids' sake. And then on that date, what's the best way for us to spend time together?
Right.
All right. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode, and if you have, please share this with a friend, and please continue to pray for us because we'll be praying for you. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.